Hi guys, I'm so sorry we lost connection with the internet, so I do apologise. I did stop cutting, so for those of you who are joining us for the first time, please again start to share it because people might switch off thinking we've finished. Let me go back to what I've done. I'll start from the beginning and I'll explain. Hopefully we won't have an interruption with the service this time. So I started my haircut with a side parting, going from the crown to the, from the front forehead to the crown. Then from here I went straight down to offset behind the trapezius on the left hand side. Then I took diagonal sections working all the way up to the top of the ear. Jamie, are we connected? Can we see it? Come a minute. May I, please?
Yes.
Thank you. So everybody, let me just double check that we're connected. Let me make sure. Yeah. There you go. Okay, perfect. So, sorry for the interruption, guys. I do apologise. Please excuse me, yeah? So let me get my head back in the game. So basically what we did is we worked numbering system of 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, all the way up to here. So our elevation was controlling the distribution of our length and weight mainly on the vertical shape. Even though my section was quite diagonal, my elevation played a massive part on it, as well as obviously my cutting line. A little bit of over direction was used around the top just to maintain a bit of a corner through here. I groomed the hair from the underneath to encourage elevation. Then when I got to the top of the ear through here, I basically started taking diagonal sections this way and then pivoting to horizontal, working all the way up, elevating the hair, but still pulling it below its root. That way I was building that weight. Right. What I did then is I sprayed some milk, Davines oil milk in the hair to try and calm all the little baby hairs down. And then I came through the nape from here, using my shortest point as a guide, taking diagonal sections, lifting. The first 3 sections I was lifting by combing from the underneath, and I was moving my body around slightly, okay? Then as I got to section 4, I started to comb from above because I wanted to build some extra weight now, but I still, as I worked around, I tucked this side in. After, when I cut a beautiful little outline in, the whole of the internal shape will really come alive. And I know Pedro was speaking 2 weeks ago about the impact of putting the external shape in. And it is massive that once you start to put the outline into any haircut, the whole of the internal shape comes alive. And like Pedro was saying, often people want to rush and put make it look really pretty, and they kind of forget how important the internal shape is. But if you can get the internal shape really, really pure and really, really clean, notice I'm moving my sections, guys, and I'm pulling it out. Again, for those guys who are tuning in again, please share it. Let's try and get a bit more motion in it because unfortunately people might have assumed that it was finished and switched off. So please feel free to share it again on the bottom left hand side. There is a share button. Please feel free to reconnect people to what we're doing. So I'm coming through my sections. If you can look carefully, they're diagonal, but they're closer to vertical than they are horizontal. And every time I'm grooming that hair, making sure I'm working super clean. Very, very important. Groom that excess hair. Make sure all this is going in the direction in which you want it to go. Taking the weight away, building that shape. Good. Okay. Now I'm going to start to get to the top of the ear again, slowly, maybe another 2 sections, and that's when I'm going to change it again so that I start to work over the ear like I did on the other side. Good. Every time we cut it, we comb the hair down into position so the hair starts to dry into position. Bear in mind the impact the heat from the head has on the drying of the roots of the hair. Again, working from above, so I'm de-elevating the hair. And I'm really building up that weight line. You can see there's very little coming off this internal shape now. Jamie, have people logged back on?
Yeah, Vicky
Good.
Perez just made a comment, not so much a question, but a comment. She says,
Hey,
thank
Vicky.
you. She says, when I first started learning, I didn't rush to put the external shape. I just didn't know any different. But the more I learned, the more I saw the possibilities, especially watching you guys.
Oh, thank you, Vicky. Where's Vicky from? Let's ask her. Vicky, where are you from, darling? Where are you from? Okay, so now my sections are going to start to come around this way now. So I'm going to start to pivot again, getting behind the ear, making sure you're working super clean. And again, I want to keep that softness over the ear. I don't want to crop it over around the ear. Come up. My sections are still diagonal, but now they're closer to the horizontal. And I'm cutting off this extra little bit of length that's sitting in front of the ear.
Vicky Perez is from California.
Hey Vicky, from Cali. California, yeah.
What other questions when you're ready?
I'm ready whenever you are. Give them to me. I love them. I love questions. Thank you for asking, guys.
Gina.
Hey Gina.
Massey.
Where's Gina from? We'll find out in a minute.
What's
Gina,
inspired-
feel free to let us know where you're from, darling.
She'd like to know what's inspired you to do this particular shape on your model, and can you talk about her problem areas?
Definitely. So, this particular haircut, I don't know if you remember, hopefully you will for those of you who are regulars, we had an amazing man doing an incredible haircut for us, a man, Christopher Brooker, who is probably one of the most legendary haircutters on the planet. And Christopher Brooker did a haircut for us, and it was actually on this particular beautiful young lady. And what I'm doing is I'm basically, I don't want to do the same thing that obviously Chris did, because you saw Chris do it. So I'm changing it slightly, and I'm adapting the shape. Chris did more of a kind of layered type haircut, and what I'm doing is I'm trying to work slightly more of a heavier type shape. So the reason why I've chosen this particular shape is because I want to keep quite a lot of the weight on the side, but I want to remove a lot of weight and a lot of length in the back, because it was kind of breakdancing everywhere. As it grew out, it's a bit heavy. So by doing what I'm doing now, I'm allowing myself to build that extra bit of weight, and every time again, comb the hair into position, making sure that I've got the correct lengths that I'm looking for. Comb the hair once, cut it once, move on. Again, can you see I have to keep moving the head back? Yeah? It's your job to remember that, yeah? Your customer or your model, they want to relax. They don't want to have to worry about maneuvering their head. But now, because I'm working horizontally, I can make sure I keep all that weight there in the temple. Look at the skin, look at the tension there. When you're cutting that, you need to release that. Don't hold that tension too hard in that area. Now my sections are completely horizontal, and I'm elevating the hair to control my vertical shape. My vertical shape in this scenario will be triangular due to the amount of elevation being used. And there again, every single time you groom the hair into position, you reposition the head, and you start again. Gina, did that answer your question, darling?
Sure did. She said thank you, and she's from New Jersey.
Cool.
What other question?
Yeah.
From Theo.
Hi, Theo.
Silverstone. He asks if you're cross-cutting the hair behind the ear to blend.
Okay. So when we at Allilon, when we discuss cross-cutting, how we describe it anyway, is the idea of changing the shape by cutting it in the opposite direction to how you initially cut it. Now, ideally, we as a company try to avoid cross-cutting. We see it more as cross-checking. So what you're doing is, if you've cut the shape using diagonal sections, for example, in one direction, so in this scenario I've worked from the back to the front, cross-checking would be going in the opposite direction. If you cut in the opposite direction, that would be called cross-cutting. And the danger of doing that is that sometimes people end up cutting strips through the hair and changing the shape. So we try to avoid cross-cutting. We tend to word it in that way. What I would say to you is, in this scenario, I've used pivoting motion to help me get from a diagonal section to a horizontal section, which allows me to build my weight accordingly and really create a slightly more fuller shape. Because the closer to horizontal your sections are, the more likely you're going to be working slightly heavier as a shape. You can, of course, use horizontal sections to flatten a shape as well. That's all to do with the elevation. So in this scenario, if I wanted to keep lifting past the roundness of the head, even though I'm working horizontal sections, I'd be flattening the shape. But because I'm pulling it below its root, I'm still building and increasing my length internally. Now you can see that very little's coming off now, so I'm just going to comb the whole thing over, and you'll see there'll be like minute bits of hair coming off now.
You might have just answered this, but Daniel Burke is asking, why are you combing your guide onto the new section and not the new section onto your guide?
Good question. Who said that?
Daniel Burke.
Daniel Burke, okay. So Daniel, think about it as cutting by numbers, okay? So let me introduce to you what cutting by numbers is. If I comb from the top down, so let's say my first section's here, I comb it out and I cut a line, okay? That first section now becomes my guide. If I comb 2, my next section, to 1, 2 will be longer than 1, so I'll be increasing in length. If I comb 1 to 2 and 2 comes out from the base, 2 will be the same length as 1, so I'll be going much flatter. So the reason why I'm combing from above is that I'm increasing my length constantly as I'm pulling 2 to 1, 3 to 2, 4 to 3, and so forth. So I'm gradually increasing my length as I work. Now, what I'm going to do is can you see all these little baby hairs? Look at that. She's got a bit of a texture to it, hasn't she? So what I'm doing is I'm going to use some oil milk, because that will give me a little bit of residue on the hair, which will help me control. And I'm also going to use the volume mousse to help me smooth the hair out and set the hair.
Marco Sanchez is asking, do you get the same shape of haircut if you first cut your internal shape, then the external, or vice versa?
So, if I cut the internal shape first, the angle of my cutting line will dictate the amount of weight distribution I have on the external shape. If I cut my external shape first, when I come internally, I can adjust the cutting line to maintain weight in the external shape. At the moment, the external shape isn't my priority. At the moment, what is my priority is I want this silhouette that I want. I want to build the shape up internally, and then I can adjust the outline. I can change it and do whatever I want to it, you know? There's no right or wrong, it just depends. Whatever you cut first has a direct impact on the opposite thing. So if you cut the internal shape first, the internal shape will affect the weight distribution on the external shape. If you cut the external shape first, the internal shape will be affected by the choice of length of the cutting line to maintain whatever weight you've tried to produce on the external shape. So I'm going to use the volume mousse, okay? I'm going to apply it into my hand. And I'm going to use the comb to distribute, head down for me, Bob, to distribute that product. And what I'm doing is I'm not scared to apply it because I need to control all those little baby hairs. And the external shape, which is my outline, I'm going to cut it once the hair is dry, okay? So by using a comb, I'm making sure I get a real good even distribution of product. Whereas often people, when they apply product, they gunk it on with their hand and it becomes far too heavy. Can you see it's being absorbed straight into the hair? Have you got a question, Jamie?
A really nice comment from Jean Witt. She says, I've really been inspired by the weekly sessions. It has been just what I needed to bring my work back to structure, form, and dimension. It has also helped me with my training sessions with my staff. Big thank you.
Where's she from? Well, let's ask her the question. Let's let her answer. Thank you. That's very kind. First of all, thank you for the comments and thank you for tuning in. Thank you for taking time out of your life to share these moments with us. One of the things that I would describe to you is quite simply how our curriculum works. If you've never ever experienced Allilon education before, how I want you to try and understand it is that our curriculum is purely based on how we train our staff. So when you ever think about the Allilon journey, our courses are like a journey. So what you can't do is you can't jump courses. We've done it in exactly the same way we train our staff. So the primary shapes is the first course and the most important course that we do. And the reason why it's the most important course that we do is because that's the course where you learn the language. There's a lot of theory in that particular course. There's no point you trying to do creative work when we struggle, or we would struggle, discussing basic geometry and certain wording. The difficult thing really is the fact that there's so many different ways of explaining stuff. People end up getting quite lost. So what we've tried to do is design a language which is very simple to understand. Once you get it, you got it. And the idea is, for salon owners, which was the main reason for it, was to try and focus on training the teachers and focus on training the salon owners, because it's a very hard thing to discuss, but the way we need to think about it is we have generation after generation who are being taught in so many different ways, which is fantastic. But the only negative to that is that it keeps us getting diluted and diluted and diluted. And what we need to try to do is go back to why things are happening. So our philosophy is get people to understand when, why, and how. So when to do something, when not to do it, why to do it, why not to do it, and how to do it and how not to do it. And if people can understand those basic principles, what you find is their work goes from here to like here overnight. And what I want to try to focus on with you guys tonight is the terminology that I'm using. So in this scenario, my vertical shape is triangular and my horizontal shape is round, apart from the front area which goes slightly squarer. The vertical shape is controlled by the cutting line, the elevation, okay? And my horizontal shape is controlled by my over direction, my elevation, and also my cutting line. So all three factors are playing a massive part. Ideally, to be fair, because my sections are diagonal, all three factors are having an impact, but in different scenarios, some factors are having more of an impact than others. Okay? Now, if you notice, I haven't started blow drying yet because I'm allowing the mousse to become a little bit stiff in the hair. Once the mousse starts to become quite a little bit stiffer, when I start to blow dry, it will control it. So don't be scared to allow the head to release its natural heat to dry the root. And then what will happen is when you start to blow dry, we'll focus on the mid-lengths and ends. Also, I'm going to use a bit of oil to help moisturise the hair before I start to blow dry. If I was to, did she answer where she's from?
No.
Okay. One of the main things I'd like to focus on tonight is if we can get as many salon owners or as many educators out there to join the journey and start the beginning journey, imagine how many people then it can filter through to. And what we can end up doing is helping standardise the industry by sharing our language with people. We're very, very open as a company. We share everything, obviously, hence tonight, and what we're doing here. We're not secretive. We don't try and hide information, because at the end of the day, we're not working and doing what we're doing for us. We're doing what we're trying to do because we're trying to make a difference, and we're trying to leave a legacy of a generation of hairdressers and hair cutters and colourists who really understand what they're doing. One of the biggest feedbacks I've had in the past, and also I suppose on my own journey, is people getting lost. Not really, they know how to do it, but they don't know why they're doing it, or they can't explain it. And one of the things that we want to try to do is teach people how to teach, because if you can teach people how to teach, then they can share. When they can share, other people can learn. Imagine if you get a salon owner, train all of their staff to a certain level, and then those people train the next batch, and then all of a sudden you've got a standard across the board of lots of people who have just the basic stuff, the fundamentals, the most important stuff. And then after that, be as creative as you want. Do whatever you want, express yourself. But there's certain basic rules that everyone needs to have. And the primary shapes is the course to help you understand that. And if you're a salon owner and you're thinking, I want to standardise my business, I want to make sure everybody in my salon has a strong standard, a strong foundation, then primary shapes is the course that you need to do. Because if you do it, then you understand the value of it, and you'll believe in it, and then you'll be able to go back and share it. Then all of a sudden you bring your head of education, then slowly, more people come through the journey. All of a sudden you've got a team of people who all speak the same language, and who can all share knowledge.
We've got a good question about primary shapes actually
Okay.
from James Willis.
Hey James,
Okay. He said he loves seeing you in here on stage, and he signed up for a primary shapes course in July. Do you have any tips for him to prep for it?
watch this every single week. Every single week. And feel free to take notes. Feel free to ask questions like tonight. Feel free to ask as many questions as you want. The one thing I would say to you is at the end of the primary shapes course, or if you're joining the primary shapes course, be willing to be challenged and be willing to start to think a little bit differently. Because what you're going to find is that a lot of it at the beginning, especially day one, is theory. Because if the mind understands, the hands understand. This needs to understand, communicate to this what's happening. So we focus mainly, especially day one, on the mind and how the mind works. Focus on the language, and then gradually, we then start to work with our hands. So day two, we start to work with our hands, and we start to make the language come alive with the execution of their techniques.
We have a question about styling actually from George Latropoulos.
Okay, hi George.
After the haircut, do you give directions to the customer on how to blow dry their hair at home and what products you'll use?
100%. I mean, that should be part of the ongoing training within any salon, that all of the trainees, all of the stylists, everybody should have this common goal of educating their clients and helping their clients understand how their hair works. Ideally, your haircut or your colour should do all the work for them, but at the same time, teaching people how to manipulate their hair is vital. So in this scenario, I'm using a wrap drying technique. Now if you look very carefully, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm not lifting the hair off the brush off the head. So a lot of people when they wrap dry, they do this. Now the idea behind wrap drying is that you use the curvature of the head to mould the hair. So I go backwards and forwards, and I stretch the hair on the bend of the head, and then as the hair dries, I place it into position, and I allow the hair to sit and cool down exactly where I need it to be.
We do have a question about the choice of brush that you're using.
Okay? So what's the question?
Are you using a Denman or what best brush?
Okay, so I'm using a Denman brush, and the reason why I'm using a Denman is because I don't want any kind of bend in the hair. I don't want any kind of volume or root lift. Now the difference between a Denman and a vest brush, if I show you very quickly. Okay, so a vest brush, this is a vest brush, okay, this is a Denman. So the difference basically is that the vest brush is half of a round brush, so you can't help but get more of a bevel on the haircut, whereas a Denman is slightly flatter. So what happens is this becomes a lot more of a collapsed type shape. The bristles tend to give you a little more tension as well, whereas these bristles, they have ceramic tips with the vest brush, and what happens is the ceramic tips basically stop the hair from becoming static. So that's really good in regards to if you've got static hair. But if I want it quite flat, the Denman's a better brush to use in this particular scenario. Also, another thing I would say is when you've got hair that you can see that's got a little bit of aggression on the tip of the hair, what you need to do is slow the heat down. That way what happens is the hair has time to set. Whereas if it's too forceful, if the wind is too aggressive in the hairdresser, the hair's been blown too hard, what tends to happen is you don't give it time to set, and the hair will tend to flick out and move a lot more aggressively. So take your time, focus your airflow. Always dry the hairline first, because the hairline is the staple of the shape. It will basically sit and help the hair sit nicely. If the hairline is moving that way, for example, no matter what I do here, this will always flick out. So when I brush it down, it will follow whatever's happening underneath it. So focus on the hairline first. Guys, thank you so much for your questions. And please, going back to what happened before, obviously we had a break in signal, so a lot of people might have accidentally logged out because obviously the signal stopped showing, so please feel free to share it. On the bottom left hand side of your screen, there's a share button. Please feel free to share it on your page, and hopefully people will be able to share it on their page, and so forth. We can slowly grow the community, and every week we can share lots of different things with you guys. Can everybody hear me okay? If anybody can't hear me.
I think so. There's a lot of chatter.
Okay.
A lot of people like what you're saying. We do have another question from Christy White.
Hi, Christy.
If your client were to have a head shape that stuck out more on the parietal ridge down from the crown, would you leave more weight in that area?
Yeah, so the danger, one of the danger areas, which is a question what Gina asked before, there was a lady called Gina before who asked about what danger areas that people tend to have on a haircut. One of the danger areas is the crown. Another one is the hairlines, i.e. the elasticity of the skin. So in the crown area, if you've got a aggressive movement, it's nice to keep a little bit of extra weight in that area. Or on the parietal ridge, if you want to keep extra weight in there, the idea is you want to try to focus on getting your sectioning pattern, like I did, to be slightly more horizontal, because that way you're going to tend to keep the shape a little bit heavier, because you'll naturally pull down slightly more. So if someone has, again, it goes back to the head shape, doesn't it? So we all know that there's a series of bones on the scalp which have a massive impact on the angle of the cutting line and the choice of length. So in this scenario, obviously we've got the major bone groups, which are basically the occipital bone, which everybody knows, which is on the centre back of the head, back here. That's the occipital bone. Then we have the sphenoid, the temporal, the parietal, the frontal, and the mastoid process. And by understanding those major bones, it helps you understand choice of length. Really focus on wrapping the hair. Focus the airflow going down the hair at all times. Really wrap the hair, and don't be scared to use pressure. And remember that it's not the heat that sets the hair, it's the cooling process. So however you leave it to cool down is how the shape will look. I'm loving the questions tonight. Thank you so much.
Ian Amazing Graham wants you to know that what she's found over the last few weeks while watching that wrap drying makes a massive difference to most of the work on most lengths of hair.
Yeah, definitely will. I mean, the beauty of wrap drying is that the idea of wrap drying is that the air circulates. So try and, if you can, don't use a nozzle. Obviously you can use a nozzle, it's not negative, but the idea behind wrap drying is that you get that circulation of airflow. And the beauty of wrap drying is it shows you how good or how weak your hair cutting is. Because if you do good hair cutting, you shouldn't have to really manipulate the ends of the hair. The hair should sit down by itself, yeah? Because the haircut does all the work. Whereas if you have to manipulate the hair too much, then maybe the choice of length and chose was slightly wrong, or maybe the weight distribution was slightly wrong in relation to the bend in the hair. But don't be scared to really think about that kind of movement. Look at my hair dryer, it's constantly moving. Yeah, never standing still, because that way you don't burn the customer. Make the hair flow. Now I'm going to start to loosen it up a little bit.
She's from Cape Town, South Africa. She'd like to know if primary shapes will be coming next year.
To South Africa? At the moment we don't have any plans to be over there this year. Next year we might be. At the moment we don't have any plans. But if you keep an eye on the Allilon Unplugged, we'll be communicating to where we're going. So next week, I think it's next week or the week after, I go to Lithuania with Jonathan, and Madeline also comes with us, and we do a primary colour and 2 primary shape classes. Then the following week we come back, and then we do we go to Parma and we do a primary shapes course in Italy, which I'm quite looking forward to. And then we come back, and then I go on a bit of an American tour, and then we finish up our tour in Chicago, which I'm quite looking forward to doing, and doing a primary shapes in Chicago. And then we've got another course booked at the end of the year in the States. The date, I'll release the date soon. So we're doing more and I'll be honest with you, I come back and then we go to the Philippines and we do a session in the Philippines. So we've got quite a lot of work that's coming in quite a lot of places, locations where we're touching and connecting with people. What I would say to you is if you're interested in doing a course, please email info@Allilon Education. Tell us where you're from. If we're in that region at any point in time, we can let you know the dates and the location. If we're not, we can communicate to you the UK dates and when you can come and join us in the UK to do a course. We will be doing a lot more in the States this year and next year. And we'll be moving, we're doing quite a lot of stuff now in Asia. We're doing lots of stuff in kind of Vietnam and lots of stuff in the Philippines and doing some stuff in Russia. We're doing quite a lot in Europe. So we're doing a lot of different stuff. Just to come back to what I'm doing, I'm using oil milk again and I'm running it through the hair just to focus on the ends of the hair. And then I'm going to get a paddle brush and I'm going to manipulate the hair with the paddle brush. Is your question, Jimmy?
We have two more questions about your courses. Okay. One from Gina from New Jersey again asking, do people take primary shapes twice or more, or are they most likely to get it?
Very good question. That's a brilliant question actually, yeah. We recommend, every time someone does the primary shapes, basically, if I can give you an idea of how the course works, on the last day we do a review with all of the students, and on day 4 they have an exam, and the exam basically is designed to help us and also help them understand where they are on their Allilon journey. And 99% of the time we tend to get people to do primary shapes at least twice, and the reason for that is because it will help them the second time they come. The first time they come they're like, whoa, and the second time they come they're like, oh, I remember that, because they've got maybe 4 or 5 months between courses to study. And to be completely honest with you, the young lady who's holding the camera right now, the young lady who's asking the questions, and the young lady sitting over there in the corner, have all been students of ours and have done the primary shapes course maybe 2-3 times. And it is the most important course that we do. Because once you get it, you got it. Once you get it, you got it. And that's the beauty of it. And it's really important to understand the Allilon language of hair, because it's the difference between me having a discussion with you, which is really easy to understand and really clear, and us kind of getting lost and not really connecting when it comes to our theory. So I'm using a paddle brush now, and the reason why I'm using a paddle brush is because by using a paddle brush what you end up doing is getting rid of any kind of marks in the hair, and you get a really nice sheen. Because I put the oil in it again, the oil basically, the heat will reignite the oil, and I should get a really nice finish on the hair. Lots of shine, lots of sheen.
Carol Kozlowski would like to know if there are barbering courses planned at the Academy.
Good question. Barbering courses, one of the things we tend to focus on, because we get a lot of inquiries about barbering courses, and the problem with the word barbering is that nowadays especially, a lot of barbering focuses on things like beard trims, shaving, working with that type of barbering concept. We tend to teach men's hairdressing, so we tend to teach people more about shape and form and how to build weight, distribute weight, change weight distribution, affect choice of length, how that affects men's hair, because the basic premises are the same. What you have to remember is one thing: hairdressing nowadays, or hair nowadays, isn't men's hair cutting and women's hair cutting anymore. There's women who wear men's type haircuts, or what was classed as men's type haircuts. There's men who have long hair and have hair that looks like women's hair. It's not that the gender barrier doesn't exist anymore. So how we should think about it is we should think about it more as in cutting hair full stop. Whether you're cutting a man or a woman, the basic principles are the same. So we don't call our barbering course men's barbering, we call it men's hairdressing, and we try to focus on the principles of cutting hair, whether you're cutting a man's hair cut or a woman's hair cut.
We have one more question about styling before you move on. It's from Hong Kong.
Okay.
Will the shape look different when our client does the blow dry at home, not how we do it?
Okay, so the answer is no. It might be a little bit less shiny, for example, because obviously, you know, like anything, it's like, you know, we've trained years to get the finish that we're aiming for with the hair. Once you put the outline in and once I cross-check all my internal shape, the haircut should be perfect. So the haircut should do a lot of the work for me. You can see my shape now, it's really kind of come about, and you can see my weight distribution on the inside. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to really mould all the outlines, and I'm going to play with my shape quite a bit. So I don't know what I'm going to do yet with the outlines. I don't know whether I'm going to come into the shape and then change the outline and go down. I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to start putting a shape in and then deciding what it is that I want to do.
We have a question about sectioning.
Okay.
Jim Gagnon from Dallas is asking, when using diagonal sections when cutting, does your choice of length determine whether you use horizontal diagonal sections or vertical diagonal sections to achieve your outcome?
Good question. Before I answer that question, just notice that what I'm doing is I'm trying to use the mirror to get the best possible shape that I want. Because that way, and I'm not focused on the cleanliness of my line. I'm focused on whether or not the hair will sit right doing it. And I'm going to play with my outlines and do things that make the haircut a little bit more interesting to the eye. So my internal shape is really balanced, but my external shape is going to be quite interesting to look at, and that will basically make the haircut look a little bit more modern. Sorry, what was the question again?
When using diagonal sections when cutting, does your choice of length determine whether you use horizontal diagonal sections or vertical diagonal sections?
Does choice of length have an impact, did you say?
Yes.
So, choice of length has an impact on how the hair sits, not necessarily on the angles of sections that you take. Basically, if your choice of length is incorrect, the hair won't sit nicely, and the hair will basically kink and move in the wrong direction. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make this a bit more modern. Let me show you what I'm going to do. Should I cut? I could do. I'm just thinking, should I cut around the ear or not? Should I keep it soft like I said before? Yeah, I'm going to keep it soft. No, I'm not. I'm going to cut it off. Okay, so what you do here in this scenario, okay, is, yeah, I'm going to cut it off. So I'm going to keep this length here through the sideburn, but I'm going to go inside the shape. I'm holding the ear away. So I'm going to literally let it be completely disconnected in front of the ear. So it's going to be one shape behind the ear and one shape in front of the ear. And I'm going to use a chipping technique, which is basically cutting small little triangles. And I'm going to leave the external shape around the sideburn area to drop out. And I'm going to work all the way around the ear. And what this is going to do, I'm going to try and make the haircut look a bit more graphic. And this will be quite interesting to look at, actually. I mean, as long as the internal shape is clean, you know, balanced, neat, classic feeling, then the external shape can be a bit more expressive. So I'm using a chipping technique, that way it won't feel like a wig. Of course you can.
What made you to change your mind?
What made me change my mind?
Yes.
Well, sometimes you've got to do what's right, and sometimes you've got to have fun. And in this scenario, I want to have a bit of fun. I just want to express myself a little bit. I've got a beautiful girl with great hair. You know what I mean? She's open. She wants it to look classic, but with a bit of a twist. So I'm open for having a bit of fun with it. I don't want to. I still need it to look beautiful and elegant, but I want it to look a bit more interesting. So I'm using a chipping technique, which is basically small little triangles to carve that area out. And notice I'm combing it down, I'm not combing it forward. Because if you comb it forward, what's going to happen is you're going to end up cutting loads of graduation in that line. But I want it to sit quite solid, so I'm combing it to the natural fall and chipping the line in. Small little chipping techniques. Good. Jamie, is there any more questions?
Oh, there's plenty.
Okay, hit me with it. I'm waiting.
Let's see. Demetra would like to know if you're coming to Ireland.
We haven't got any plans, but the good thing about being in Ireland, you're only an hour and a half away, so if you want to come and join a primary shapes course, you're more than welcome.
Ian Graham would like to know when Christopher visited, was there anything that he shared with you that made you think any differently?
Very good question. Who said that?
Ian Amazing Graham.
Ian Amazing Graham, what a cool name. Well, Chris is a friend of mine, so I respect anything any of my friends tell me. Would I say that I look at hair differently? I would say that the beauty of being in Chris's environment is that Chris has his own way of looking at the world. And I think being with somebody like that, I think it's quite interesting, quite refreshing, because you know, he's not involved in the industry, but he still has a very, very strong opinion on the industry, and he obviously has a wealth of experience and knowledge. So he's able to really have an opinion, and a respectful opinion as well, on where he thinks the industry is going and is going. And to be fair, I think if you were to speak to Chris, it's nice because he understands what we're trying to do as a company, he understands what our goals are, and he respects what we do. And I think, you know, has he had an impact on me? He's a friend, and I have lots of friends who have impacts on me. You know, last week I was with some friends having dinner. You know, I'm talking to you guys have an impact on me and how I think. Like now I'm looking at my shape, and do I like that little square bit there? You know, I could take that away, I could drop it that way, but I like the fact that it's got some strength in there. It's got this kind of geometric feeling, so I'm actually going to make it slightly sharper.
James Willis would like to know, does the scissors selection make a difference as I need to buy new hair?
Big time. Well, whenever people ask me about scissors, I always feel like I'm plugging, so I'm not going to go too much into it, but we basically have our own brand of scissors, okay? These are the Allilon scissors, okay? They're custom made. We make them, it's taken us a long time to get them to this place. We're going to have two designs. This is our fundamental design. You can buy them from our website, which is, if you just email info@alliloneducation, you'll be able to purchase them. If you want to go on our website and have a look at them and read up a little bit about them, feel free. But to answer your question in regards to what we use, this is the scissors that we use. So every Allilon educator and every team member that works in ENA, this is what we use. And one of the basic, so you have to decide for me. Michelle, go around this way, babe, because I need the light a bit better because it's getting dark in here now. If I come right here, you'll be able to see much better. I'm going to comb the hair down with the wide end of the comb. Now, because the scissors are so pointy on the tip, I can really get in there and work on the detail. The wider the tip of the scissor, the less you can do all this kind of stuff. And this is what makes the haircut perfect, this detail. Any blade can cut hair, but it's the detail on the tip that makes the shape. And the tighter it is on the end, the tighter you can go and the more detail you can work. Can you see now I'm pointing into it? The reason why I'm pointing into it is because the shape's quite heavy in that area, and because before where it was layered, the shape all kind of floated out, but because now I've put a strong outline into that zone, what's happened is the hair stacks out and becomes wider and comes towards you more. So by using a pointing technique like this, what it does, it just reduces the density on the tip and it makes the hair sit flatter, but it doesn't change the line, the characteristic of the cutting line.
Philip Michael Smith would like to know, why don't you take it slightly tighter through the nape?
Okay, I could do. There's no reason why I couldn't do. Me personally, I like the idea of the balance that I have. There's no reason why you can't, Philip. It's all down to personal preference. My personal taste level is I want it to be, actually if I take this a bit wider. My personal, because that way that will blend into, can you see it will look like a straight line running from the ear? It's personal preference, isn't it, Philip? There'll be somebody who's watching this who'll say, why did you put that in soft? Why did you put that in hard? Why didn't you leave it soft? I preferred it soft. Or why did you cut more of a graduated, heavier shape rather than a flatter, layered shape? And again, it's all down to personal preference and personal taste. I personally like my silhouette that I've achieved. But there isn't a right or wrong. It's down to personal preference, isn't it? I could have gone in tighter, but the danger of working in tighter is you can't obviously see it, but the occipital bone is very predominant. So if I go too short in that area, my problem is I'll end up, come on, Michelle. I'm just going to carve this outline in. So I'm going to club cut it at first, and then I'm going to go through and I'm going to point it through. And this is why the scissors is so important. You shouldn't have to go over and over the hair again and again. You should comb it once, cut it once, and it should be done. Come on this fast, Michelle. Actually, no, you're right. Stay there, sorry. Sorry. Just that you must need to move over a little bit. So when you're cutting the shape, don't be scared to really manipulate the shape with your scissor. Are we still live? We haven't had a problem with the interruption, have we?
No. Do your scissors come in left?
No, no. We have discussed it, to be honest, and I think in the end, I think we will end up doing it. But at the moment, there isn't a massive, or we haven't had a massive demand for them. I do believe in the future we will be producing left-handed scissors, because I do believe there is a market for it. The problem is, when we purchase scissors, obviously we purchase in quite high volumes. So if people don't really know that we do left-handed scissors, you end up with a lot of stock, which obviously, for those business people out there, affects your cash flow. You know what I'm going to mean by that. So we will do it at some point, but at the moment we're not. Now again, just to make it a little bit softer, I'm going directly in with my blade. Directly in. So I'm not going on an angle. Oh, try not to move your head. Okay, now, just for the interest of time, I'm going to get rid of all this hair. So, do you mind passing me the clipper, Michelle? And then I'm going to use a chipping technique on the line to refine the line. Thank you. Just going to get rid of all this excess. Just take all that away.
Liam Wickman says he loves your architectural approach and wants to know if you do dressing courses.
That's a very good question. Liam, did you say?
Yes.
Thanks for the question, Liam. As a company, no, we don't. The reason why we don't is because our primary focus is cutting and colouring. I don't believe you should charge people money if if you're not, how can I say this? You shouldn't be charging money for people, for stuff, if you're not either the best or aiming to become one of the best, or, you know, try not to sound arrogant. You can't charge people money if you don't know what you're talking about. And as a company, what we don't want to do is try and teach people something which, when we know there's people out there who are much better at it than us. So I'd rather people spend their money teaching, being taught by people who love that particular craft and focus a lot of energy on it. So as a company, that's not our primary focus. So we don't really cater for that market. There's people out there who are much better at that type of thing than me, for example. Yes, I could do hair up, but me personally, I'm not. I respect it so much, and I've got a lot of amazing friends who are incredible at dressing hair. But my passion is cutting, and our company passion is cutting and colouring. So that's what we sell. That's our product. I hate that. I don't mean to come across arrogant when I say that we're trying to be the best at that, but we really are trying to be the best at that, and we really are trying to make a difference. And I think there's a lot of educators out there now who charge for education, but it could have a negative impact. It's like me, if I sell a dressing course, yes, you'll be able to learn something from me, but if you have a dressing course, say with someone like Ange, I mean, he'll teach you things that, you know, he'll teach me things, you know, when it comes to things like that. So I think there's professionals at different stuff, and our professionalism is mainly cutting and colouring, and that's what we focus a lot of our energy on. I hope that answered your question, mate.
I think it did. Daniel Burke would also like to know, did you start your career at Sassoon at the Covent Garden Salon in Neal Street?
So when I first started my career, I started actually in a barber shop in Archway called the Junction Barbers, and the owner of it was a guy called Peter, and he was an amazing guy, really nice guy. And that's where I actually started my career, and I worked there for a little while, and then I joined, I went and worked in a Selfridges salon in Oxford Street, and then from there I worked there for a while, and then I moved and I went to Vidal Sassoon, and I trained there for a little bit, and then I decided to move on and start our own little baby, our own little project. So I've done this little bit here that I tried to keep, this little creative bit. I don't like it, so I'm going to take that away. Sometimes you've got to try something out, let it sit in your eyes for a little bit, see if you like it, and then if you don't like it, you take it away. So in this scenario, I don't like that corner anymore, so I'm just going to take it away. Never be scared to change, yeah? Try something out, and then if it's not working, or you don't like it, or you don't feel it looks it's doing what you want it to do, just change it. Never be scared to change. One of the biggest things people do is they commit to something and they're scared to evolve from it, and that's dangerous, because you can't ever be in a situation where you're being beholden to a shape. You can evolve, you can change, you can adapt, you can create a shape and then change the shape, and then create the shape and then change the shape. And that's the beauty of learning the primary shapes. The idea is that you understand the reasons why things happen, and you're able to adapt and have different options. One of the things that you'll learn when you come to Allilon is we don't teach people haircuts. We don't teach people hairstyles. We teach people about why things are happening, how they're happening.
We do have a question from Philip Michael Smith.
Hey Philip.
Would you always use clippers to refine your outline when cutting a BC?
A BC? BC. Ah, he's talking Vidal Sassoon, okay. So, with a BC, so in this scenario, I've basically used graduation on the majority of my shape. So I haven't layered it as such yet. I've actually used pure graduation. So in Vidal Sassoon language, that's what he's talking about. This is a B. And basically, in this scenario, the external shape, which is the outline, okay, is I have obviously tied it up with the clipper, but ideally, what I don't want it to do is feel like a wig. So I'm using my scissors again. I'm reintroducing my scissors. Even though I've cut the external shape with my scissors to begin with, I reintroduce the scissors to use a pointing technique just to loosen that line up, make it a bit softer. So I use the mirror again. So if you use the mirror, you can see the shape now becomes much more fluid. Okay? Down. And you can see the beauty of strong technique is how the light hits the hair. So I've spoken about it before and I'll mention it again. Something called a shine line. Now, the shine line basically shows the distribution of length and weight within your haircut. It shows off the haircut. So, Michelle, would you mind coming around this side, babe? Yes. Look in the mirror. You got it? Okay, so can you see this line here, this shine? Alex, I need you out of the way, mate, sorry. Can you see this shine line here? Yeah, but it's brighter. Now what happens is as you move the hair up and down, can you see how the shine line moves? Moves up and down the head. That shows me if my technique is good or not. Because if the shine line, it should be like a band like that. If the shine line breaks, then there's a problem in your technique. The shine line should move up and down consecutively like that if you've got strong technique. Yeah? Now on this side, I'm going to put a little line into the haircut on this side. I'm going to change it. So I'm going to lift it up slightly. Actually, I'm not going to lift it up too much because I still want it to be reasonably soft. But that way, I'll bring the attention to the eye. Okay? And then what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to come inside here and I'm going to take the fringe up a bit shorter. I'm loving the questions tonight, guys. Thank you so much for getting involved and asking me loads of questions. I love that.
Yeah, lots of love for this haircut. A lot of good feedback.
Good, as long as people are enjoying it. I'm enjoying cutting it and I'm hoping you're going to enjoy with it. Enjoy the haircut. Behind the ear, guys, I'm just going to dust off the ends. Now in this scenario, I'm not really spending too much time refining. And in a minute, I'm actually going to start to check all my internal shape. I often get a question asked to me in regards to how often we should check the internal shape. And realistically, what I do is I put the basic shape in, I dry the shape, then I put all my outlines in, and then I cross-check all my internal shape. So this top bit hasn't even been cut yet, okay? So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to slightly layer the top, okay? But it's already layered on top. I just need to, from Christopher's haircut last time, I just need to strengthen it up and get rid of all the delicate bits, okay? So I'm going to start in the top. And let me show you how I'm going to do this. Okay, I'm going to start the crown. I'm going to take a section from the crown to the front forehead, okay? Like that. I'll groom my excess hair out of the way. So this will now be section 1 through the top, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to comb the hair up. If you come around there, Michelle. Comb the hair up, and I'm going to lots of tension. I can afford to use a lot of tension on the top because the skin isn't that flexible on the parietal bone. And I'm going to cut a square cutting line, and then when I get to the crown, I'm going to slightly round off the crown. Now the last time Chris cut it, he slightly pointed into the top, so there's a little bit of freedom on the edges. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and strengthen that particular shape. So my next section is going to be parallel to the first. So Michelle, if you want to come around this side. Don't worry. You did a great job, by the way. You're doing a great job, guys, filming. Now, I want section 1 to be my guide. So I'm going to comb section 2 onto section 1. So let me show you a little trick. If section 1 is there, To make sure I'm pulling it straight out, look in the mirror. Okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to place this finger, okay, on top of the hair next to my section. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you're going to zoom in a bit more. If you want actually, Michelle, come around here and film this way. Stand in front. There you go, zoom in there. So I'm putting my finger on top of the hair next to section 1. Then I comb the hair onto my finger and then go straight up. That way I know I'm coming straight, number 1 is coming straight out from the base. And number 2 is going to number 1. Go in there, coming straight up. So what's going to happen is I'm going to maintain some weight and extra length on this side. Jamie, introduce.
Andres is asking one more time, is your tension the same when cutting on wet and dry hair?
So, good question. Me personally, I tend to cut, for those of you who kind of have seen me cut before, I tend to cut with a lot of tension in general. The only time I release my tension is if I'm basically working around the temple areas. I still use a lot of tension in regards to the securing the hair, but the actual pulling of the hair. So there's a difference between using pressure to control the hair and using pressure to pull the hair. Two different types of pressure. So in this scenario, by the way, I've gone 1, 2 to 1. Now what I'm going to do, 3 went to 1. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come through this way. So I'll come through from the top to the bottom. I'm just going to dust off my shape. So look in the mirror. I'm just going to dust off my shape. I'm not going to cut that, that's from the other side, so I'll cut that in a minute. Just make it clean, super clean. Remember, the cleaner the shape, when I start to refine this, the haircut will start to look really beautiful. At the moment it looks like a mess, but as I go through my shape and refine it, the haircut will really start to look really good. Well, hopefully it'll look good anyway.
I think we'd like another explanation on clean sections. We have another question. Any tips on getting your sections clean while cutting dry hair?
Yes, so one of the things that you've got to think about is tension has a massive part of that. Also the way you groom the hair and how you hold the hair. So now, for example, Michelle, come round. I'm taking a section here, okay? This hair here, I'm combing it and I'm resting my finger there. Then I'm using this finger to secure my comb. I comb the hair. Yeah, now I'm basically isolating that bit in between. Then I put my comb inside and then I secure it with my finger again, can you see? And then I let go. Now can you see that big corner running through? That big corner there is my one technique here and my other technique here meeting. And all you've got to do is just take that little nip off the corner. The shape moves. The shape will become much more hugging. Again, watch me again. Comb the hair down. Can you see that? Separate the hair. Comb this hair away. Rest your finger. Use your second finger again to take your section. Comb that hair away and then place your comb, and then with this finger again, which is your second finger, push it through the comb. I hope that helps you guys to work cleanly. Just nip that corner off.
Theo Sylvanson has a question. During your courses in London, do you supply the models?
Okay, so very good question. Very good question. In the academy, we basically work on mannequins. Okay, and we work a lot on mannequins when we go internationally as well. We used to work on models. We did that for quite a while actually, a good couple of years. And what we found was that the student wasn't able to really concentrate on what they were doing because they ended up trying to always focus on making the consumer happy. So for example, when people came in for a collection course, for example, we'd have models that would basically would say one thing, and then when we started cutting them, they'd obviously react in a different way because the student maybe confidence might have not been the best or whatever. You know, there's so many moving pieces to working on live models. We decided last year, do you know what, that's enough. Let's focus on pure technique, pure mechanics, pure shapes. Let's not worry about making sure that, you know, we've got a room of X amount of models who are... Often what we found was that, it sounds horrible and I hate saying it out loud, but the models would sometimes intimidate the students, and then the students would end up actually not performing because their confidence would be low because the model would be touching or maybe making, you know, it's just there's so many moving pieces to an education environment, and you're much more able to control the education environment when you take away potential problems. And of course, there's pros and cons to cutting a live model and cutting on a mannequin. Obviously, the pro to cutting a live model is that you are dealing with things like growth patterns and head shapes and so forth, which are amazing learning tools. But the negative is that often what happens is you're a little bit limited to what they can do or what they'll let you to do. And often, especially if the student is foreign and doesn't speak English, that causes a problem as well, because the model would sometimes not really understand that the person has to digest what's being said in their own language by an interpreter. So anyway, I went off on a tangent. To basically answer your question, we use mannequins. And the reason we use mannequins is because it makes the learning environment much more easier for the consumer, the student, to focus on pure technique rather than worrying about all the other moving pieces of cutting a live model.
Theo says he completely understands that. Thank you.
My pleasure.
What have you found is the best mannequin from Jason Hatt?
Okay, so there's lots of different mannequins you could use. Obviously, probably the most renowned ones are the pivot point mannequins. There is lots and lots of, a lot of my friends who teach use different mannequins. Davos now have produced their own mannequins. So we use Davos cutting mannequins, which are wicked. They're brilliant. So at the moment, that's what we focus on. There's also Davos colour mannequins. So for those of you out there who are interested in buying mannequins and you work with Davos, feel free to ask them about their mannequins, because they're really good for cutting. If you're going to use mannequins from Pivot Point, I found that the best ones I've enjoyed using have been the Erica mannequin. I find they're quite good. There's loads of mannequins. Some friends of mine, they use, let me remember the name. I can't remember the name. There's so many different ones. So my advice to you is try them all out. But if you're charging for courses, if you are out there and you are watching this and you are an educator, I know there's quite a few of you that like to join in and share with us. My advice to you is try and use the best possible mannequin to make it your life easy in a classroom and for the student. Buying a cheap mannequin, like in some countries when we go, they have these mannequins where they have to pull on the skin and things like that, and we don't recommend them as a company. Okay, now I'm going to start to check all my shape to make sure it's purely clean, okay? So I'm going to work with lots of tension, and I'm going to really check my shape. Can you see the colour here, how the blonde is sitting at that point there? I need to basically refine and get rid of all these little fluffy bits, and I might end up pointing the colour there to soften it. So, I'm going to come through here. I don't need a clip because I'm going to use the wide tooth of my comb, and I'm just going to check my shape. And every time I do this, I basically elevate the hair slightly, and I'm just literally dusting. So I shouldn't really be cutting big chunks of hair off. If you cut big chunks of hair off, what you're doing is what we said before, which is cross-cutting, and avoid doing that at all costs. You shouldn't be cross-cutting the haircut. If you find a problem, you go back through it the same way you cut it, and you keep checking the shape in the because I cut it from the front to the back, I'm going from the back, because I cut it from the back to the front, I'm going from the front to the back now. And there shouldn't be hardly anything coming off. I should be literally just dusting.
Theo Silverstone thinks the haircut is looking amazing. Love your attention to detail and also the way you explain everything.
Thank you, Theo. Where's Theo from? Does he say?
No, we don't know yet.
Guys, do me a favour. When you write comments or stuff, please write down where you're from, because I love knowing. I feel like I'm connecting to you if I know kind of where you're from and what you do, whether you own a salon, whether you teach. We're very lucky to have a really broad member of viewers who watch every single week. I know some of you have salons, some of you teach, some of you have just started your journeys, some of you are really seasoned stylists, and it's really nice for you all to kind of get to know each other a little bit. And obviously, for those of you who watch every single week, it's nice for you to be able to reconnect with people.
Oh, Theo's local, Mill Hill, Northwest London. I work with Linda Velasco.
Ah, okay, Theo, I know Theo, yes. We were talking about you last night, young man. I hope you're well. I'm meeting up with Linda probably next week maybe for a drink. Feel free to come and join us. So can you see where this colour line is here? If I check it vertically, come around the back, Michelle. I've obviously got a very, very defined corner for my elevation. Can you see that? So what I can do is I can just nip that little edge off there. That will kind of take away a little bit, an element of that line, but the colour is still an impact, okay? I'm gonna, because I want to keep it square and I want to keep the weight in the front, I don't want to take off too much of that corner. I just want to dust it off.
Theo's going to join me for a drink, by the way.
Good, good. Tell him I'm not really a big drinker, but I'll have a drink with him if he wants. I'll have a glass or something. But normally I have a bit of orange juice, because I'm a good boy. Okay, cross-checking now, coming through the bottom here. Now to get from the bottom to the top, basically what you should do, from here to here, you should be able to do it at least 15 times to basically come from the bottom to the top. Between 13 and 15 times. If you go from the bottom to the top in about 5 movements, you've basically, thank you, you've basically not controlled your elevation properly. Can you see? I'm just dusting my cutting lines.
Daniel Berg says, sometimes I find it hard to stop refining. Do you have any advice when to stop?
Yeah, never stop. It's never good enough. No, on a serious note. Let me be serious. When do you stop? It's a brilliant question, actually. And the truth is, you stop when you feel like you've achieved you've achieved the maximum cleanliness that you can. We have a philosophy in Allilon where you think you've finished, you've only just started. So once you say, okay, I'm done, we check it one more time just to make sure it's absolutely perfect. And every time you recheck it one more time, you're basically elevating the standard of your work every single time. So my advice to you is, when you're cross-checking, work in columns, and then come around here, Michelle, so you can see, work in a column, then go half of that column, half of that column, half of that column, and just move through gradually. By the time you get to the other side, it should be perfect. So start quite low. So to answer your question, to answer your question as a whole, keep checking until you think it's absolutely perfect and you're done. Once you feel like you're done, check it one more time from the beginning. And that way you'll find something that you would have missed.
Carol Kozlowski would like to know, how do you choose to comb over and comb under? Does it matter now?
Yeah, what a brilliant question. So, very good question, Carol. Carol, did you say?
Yes.
Very good question, Carol. So, in this scenario, I want to avoid getting any kind of lines in the hair. So, by combing it up all the time from the bottom, I'm encouraging elevation. So, I'm basically softening my graduation. If I come from the top, I risk getting weight lines. So, every time I come from the bottom, I encourage the shape to be softer. Notice I'm using the wide end of the comb. Notice I'm not actually using any tension with my fingers. I'm just supporting the hair. I'm not putting any pressure. And the reason for that is because of the skin in that area, which is very delicate. Yeah? So by combing from the underneath, you're encouraging elevation, which basically will stop me from getting any kind of weight lines or any kind of heaviness on the shape. Now all this cross-checking, all this happening is the natural oils from my hand and natural heat from my hand, and this kind of constant nitpicking on the tips just makes the ends of the hair really sharp and really clean. And the oil from my hand and the oil that I've put into the hair basically slowly starts to kind of get absorbed more and more because of the warmth of my hand. So the hair becomes shinier and shinier and shinier the more that you work it. Again, shifting my weight, constantly moving around the head every time, just no tension.
I know you answered this earlier, but Vicky Knittinger has a question about what shears you're using.
Okay, so in my hands, I'm using the Allilon branded scissors, okay? They're custom made, so it's taken us a long time to get us to this stage. We're producing these as a standard. They're 5.25 in length, and they weigh 40 grams, so they're very, very light. And the best thing about them, which is what I love, is the tips. Because they're so pointy, you're able to really, really do detail work. And there's going to be people watching this, hopefully, who have bought them or used them or still have used them. Feel free to comment, both negative or positive, on how you felt about the scissors. And if you would like to look into them a bit more, feel free to email us at info@alliloneducation.com, and we will arrange to send them to you. You can purchase them, and then we'll send them to you wherever you are in the world. Another thing we're going to be doing is we're actually producing, if you go over there, Michelle, and look at this, the scissors that's over there, that's basically going to be, that's going to be, that's actually being produced at the moment. So it's a classic wing, but it's gunmetal grey. And basically, we're going to be selling two scissors, these Allilon branded ones, and the wings that are Allilon branded. Gunmetal grey. So the gunmetal grey is exclusive to Allilon, and obviously the logos are placed on the blades.
Rice Peter Brooks would like to know what gives you the ideas and inspiration from each guest.
What a great question. Well, I think suitability. Who said that? Who asked the question?
Rice.
Rice. Good name. Every client or every guest, I like the way you guys in the States call it, he's from the States 100%, when you guys call them guests. That's something I learned from you. I like that. I really like the way you guys talk about customers as being guests, because they are guests in your business. I think we should all inherit that terminology. Anyway, when it comes to choosing the right shapes, the right styles, the right choices, the way you should think about it is, in the end, it's about suitability, and it's also about your fixed and your variable analysis. So let me explain to you what we mean by that. If the customer comes in, your analysis has to be the hair texture, the hair density, the face shape, the head shape, whether they wear glasses or not, whether they how they blow dry their hair at home, do they have any scars or any protrusions or indentations on their scalp, is the hair coloured previously. Fixed analysis is basically the analysis that you're making, which basically describes what material you have to work with, so things that you cannot change. So you cannot change the head shape, for example. You cannot change whether the customer wears glasses or not. You cannot change whether the person's got a round face or a square face or a triangular face or a heart-shaped face or whatever. So these are things that you have to work with. You can't change whether the person's got naturally curly hair or naturally dead straight hair. These are factors that you cannot change. So you need to analyze and understand what the fixed analysis is. Once you understand the material that you have to work with, then what you do is you look at the variable analysis. So the variable analysis are the things you can change. So you can change choice of length, you can change weight distribution, you can change weight positioning, angles of lines and external shapes, you can change proportions, you can change so many things to basically complement the face or complement the texture. So once you understand your fixed, then you then focus on your variable. The problem is a lot of people don't focus on the analysing side of it. so they make the wrong choices, and that's why primary shapes as a course is so important. It helps you understand the when, why and how. It helps you focus on the Allilon hair philosophy of getting you to understand the choices that you're making.
We have 2 questions asking, how long do you schedule for haircuts behind the chair?
Good question. Who was that from?
One from Jezebel, one from Jason.
Okay. Hi Jason, hi Jezebel. Everybody has an hour within our business. For those of you who don't really know a lot about our company, and it's the first time you're joining in, we have 2 companies. One of them is Enna Salon. Enna Salon is a consumer brand. It's a salon based in London, and basically we do hair and beauty there. And Allilon is the education tool to create the standards and the quality control for Enna. So all of our team are trained by Allilon educators, and they're trained on the journey, which is what I was talking to you before about the course journey. And if you're interested in finding out more about the journey, feel free to visit www.alliloneducation.com, and you'll be able to understand how the journey works and who's on the journey, or who can start the journey. Tilt the head down, calm the hair down, and again I'm going to go directly into the hair, just to soften that line slightly. Okay, so I'm almost there. Okay, now I'm just going to focus on the fringe. I do like, if I'm honest, I do like the fact that the fringe is a bit soft and does flick a bit there. I do like that. And I like the fact that the shape is much more fuller, more rounder, and it's got a bit of movement to it. I'm just not sure whether I should go for more of a graphic fringe or keep the fringe soft. What do you want? It's your hair. Soft. I've been creative. You want it soft, yeah? Okay, so I'm going to keep the fringe a bit softer. Okay. What about lengthwise? Do you like it being quite long in your eyes, or do you prefer it clear in your eyes?
Long.
You like it long? Okay. So she likes it long. So what we're going to do is we're going to just soften it and keep all the length to it. My internal shape, the angle of my cutting, I already maintain that length. So do you mind it hitting your eyes, or do you like that?
Take a little bit off, maybe.
Okay, but you like it in your eyes,
Yeah.
yeah? It doesn't irritate you. You don't wear glasses or anything, do you?
No.
Okay. So all I'm going to do is dust off the tips of the hair. So I'm going to head up. I'm going to gently comb the hair down on top of my fingers. I'm not going to take a lot off that. Just going to nip the tips off it. First of all, I'm going to start by putting the length in, and I'm obviously club cutting it, so it's going to be quite sharp. But then what I'm going to end up doing is pointing into that after and softening it through.
Do you mind if we just move just for lighting?
Yeah, of course, come on this side. Thank you for communicating that. It's very late over here now. It's, what is it, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock? So it's quite late over here now, so. I'm just
We have
going to.
a color question.
Okay.
Jason Hatt would like to know, is the color Vibrochrome?
What a great question. This actual colour was still the same colour that Maddie used last time. We haven't coloured it since. I don't know the colour, but what I will do is I'll get Maddie to comment on the Facebook page to describe what. Use the mirror, I will get Maddie to write on the Facebook page to describe what colour was used last time. Can you see, guys, if you look in the mirror, can you see how the dark hair is consistent? Yeah? And the light hair is consistent. That explains whether the technique is clean or not. If this is breaking, then you've got a problem with your technique. And if you follow the shine line round, you should see the weight distribution being even. Can you see the shine line moving up and down? If that's pure and clean, it shouldn't break. Can you see that? Can you see that on the camera? Is the light good enough to see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Maybe I should move over there. Because I'm in this area there's no height. Actually, push up a little bit. Don't worry, I've got the big muscles. Zoom into the mirror. Okay, so now I'm directly under the light, you'll be able to see it better. Okay, so if you look under the light, if you come around here and shove it. Good. So if you look at the light, as I move down the hair, the light moves with me. You see that line there, that shine line? That's what you're looking for. Now I'm going to look at the outline. Do I like the outline, the way the outline's looking? Then I look at the weight line again through this side, comb the hair down. Now look at the colour distortion. Now look at how the colour sits. Can you see this is looking a bit fluffy? Can you see that? I don't know if you can see that on camera. So what I need to do is just dust the tips, because basically in that scenario it's where the ends are a little bit dehydrated. And what you do is you just glide the blades over the top like this. And it just tidies up all the ends. Comb the hair out of the way. And just dust that hair there. Any more questions?
No, a lot of comments though. A lot of people love this, and Pedro chimed in and confirmed that it is masked with fiberchrome.
Cool. Okay. Finishing my haircut now. I'm just going to go through and gently point through the hair just to make it a little bit lighter, then I'm going to style the hair through. I do hope that you've enjoyed watching this haircut. It's starting to really kind of take its form now, and it's starting to really take shape. Whenever you pull this hair out, your haircut should always be super clean. So there shouldn't be any kind of breakage in your lines. So if I show you, for example, let me show you the easiest way to show you. Make sure I'll stand there for me. Just film this way. So if you take a vertical section anywhere on the head, you should be able to pull the hair out, and the shape should be completely clean. Yeah? When you pull the hair out, you should be able to see a really beautiful clean line everywhere you go. Yeah? And that way you can see if your technique's good. So obviously that's in the centre back. Let's pull one here. So a good way to test yourself is to randomly go around there and show. So you can use my black top. Stay there. Stand there. You use my black top as the background. So you can see every time you pull it out, it should be completely clean. There shouldn't be any break in that shape. Yeah? And sometimes the fingers can be deceiving, whereas if you just use your comb, you can't lie, because the comb will give you the same tension throughout. So if you, again, Michelle, stand in front. You stand still, let me move to you. You just stand still. Okay. So when you comb it out, again, if you look, you should see the angle. Yes, every time, and you should do this everywhere around the head. You should pull the shape out everywhere you go, and just pick random bits, and you shouldn't have a break in that technique. Okay. I'm just going to go through. I'm just going to soften my weight lines, my corners, just by using a pointing technique. And what this will do, it will just give me a little bit of freedom, and it will also help me blend in some of the colour, because obviously where the lighter hair hits the darker hair, you can cause a little bit of a kind of bend in the light. Come on this side, Michelle.
Vicky Knittinger would like to speak with someone about bringing you on the hairstylist cruise. She says you have the patience of a saint and your attention to detail is flawless.
Oh, what's that cruise thing? What is it?
I'd like to know more.
Come on, let us know. Give us a bit more information about what this cruise is. Because if it means me getting on a boat, that's probably unlikely. Because I'm not very good on ships. I get a bit sick. So my patience probably wouldn't be as good as it is now. Now when you're pointing, guys, still make it systematic, yeah? The reason why I've kept that weight line is because I wanted to keep that weight there. Otherwise I could have lifted it more, rounded that weight line off, but I want to keep the weight line. Now I'm just softening it through, so the way you go into the hair should be direct, and what that does, it just softens the hair, and it helps the colour blend. Okay, good. Come through the middle, and I'm done. So if you've got any questions, you've got 2 more minutes to ask me, or forever hold your peace. Please feel free to share the video on your page, so as many people as we can start to join the community. The more people that connect with it, the better it will be.
Vicky provided a link to the website www.hairstylistcruise.com.
Sounds good. I love the way you said that, hairstylistcruise.com. It's so American, I love that. It's amazing, dude. That's so cool.
Carol Kozlowski would like to know, how do you choose how deep to go with your point cutting?
That's a good, very good question. Who said that?
Carol.
Okay, so Carol, basically what I'm trying to do now is I'm not trying to change the shape. I'm just trying to soften the cutting line. So by pointing into it, the deeper you go, the more weight you tend to make it the shape a lot more regular. If you just point the tips is what I'm doing, I'm just softening it. So when I move it, it has like a really nice swoosh to it. Okay? I'm going to call it a day. I'm going to get some oil. As you can see, I love this product. I use it all the time, every week. And for me, I use it on everything. Curly hair, straight hair. It's part of the Davines oil range. Okay? And I'm working the product through the hair like this. Really, really share that product and get it through the haircut. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to try not to blow dry it too much. I'm just going to get the paddle brush, nozzle. Just going to wrap it once with a bit of heat. And what will happen is the heat will basically seal the product in the hair. Last minute questions?
Requests to come to Boston and New Zealand.
Say that again?
Requests for you to come to Boston and New Zealand.
Boston as in America, Boston?
Yes.
Yes, we might be able to do that actually. We might have some discussions at the moment I'm having with somebody with Davines Boston. So potentially we might be coming over. We will see. If we do, we will let you know. If there's slots for a course, we will let you know. And feel free to join us. Merci beaucoup. Perfect. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my large comb. I'm going to use the Your Hair Assistant hairspray. Camera here, Michelle. And with the hairspray, all you need to do is one gentle spray. And just gently comb the hair with the comb. Not use too much, because the haircut should do all the work for me. And this is the hairspray from the Your Hair Assistant range, which was inspired by Ange. I think a shape like this, once you actually get your fingers in there and move it around a little bit with product, just comes alive. I really hope you've enjoyed the shape. I've really enjoyed cutting it. I found it quite fun, and I've enjoyed the idea of working with quite a heavy shape, quite a heavy graduated haircut. Good. Okay, you can see that simple symmetry. Unscrew that with me. Simple symmetry in regards to the external shape. Perfect. So if I spin around, you can see a beautiful little arced fringe, quite graphic outline, pure graduation, working around the ear, making it as clean as we possibly can, and then basically going round, head down for me, into a beautiful graduated shape. And I've really worked on refining it and making it super clean. A slightly offset outline just to make it a bit more interesting, and this side's slightly softer. And I'm able to tuck this hair a bit better behind the ear. And then that little line there focuses on the eye. From a side profile, if you look in the mirror, get a really nice kind of movement to it. And then obviously you've got your soft long fringe. I hope you like it. Thank you very much for joining in. I'm sorry about the breakup in the service. Internet, you know, the sky rubbish that happens up there. I do apologise, but there is a part 1 and a part 2. Please feel free to share it. Thank you so much for your interaction tonight. It's been amazing. I love you asking me questions because it makes me think and actually have a lot more fun when I'm working. Thank you. Thank you for letting me cut your hair.
No problem.
Thank you for you guys staying back to watch. And we'll see you guys next week. Same place, same time. Have a lovely day. Feel free to share it.